77 years after the creation of Israel in the British Mandate for Palestine, now the United Kingdom is set to formally recognize a Palestinian state today, 21st of September 2025. Some are saying the move is symbolic and pointless, but if we are to understand the geopolitical dynamics of the world, one must grasp the reality that something can be symbolic, something can fail to immediately change what's happening on the ground, which is horrific, the Gaza crisis in this case, and yet it can still be at the same time far from pointless. Just days before the United Nations General Assembly, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, is set to announce that Britain formally recognizes the state of Palestine. It comes as a string of Western powers have said they would recognize Palestine as a state. I made videos about it back in June, July, saying that I do believe that this will occur because of the citizen sentiment in these, so-called democratic, and honestly is a fairly democratic, these countries in the West. The citizen sentiment has gone extremely in the direction of favoring justice, favoring statehood, and legitimate rights for the Palestinian people, the natives of the land. France came first, and the UK then followed. Canada, Malta, Portugal, Australia, Portugal most recently, Australia somewhere in that line up. A reminder, by the way, that about 75% of the world's countries already recognize Palestine as a state, albeit one under brutal military occupation by the state of Israel with no defined borders. What is going to be Palestine? Where's the capital going to be? This is all, up for debate. But statehood for a Palestine with representation for the natives of the land, the Palestinian Arabs, that is 75% of the countries of the world that already acknowledge that. It's just the Western world that holds out, and with the countries UK and France joining the rest of the civilized world, one could say, in recognition of Palestine, Israel continues to grow more and more frustrated that what happens on the ground is not translating into what is accepted diplomatically or politically on the world stage. They've got control on the ground, but their legitimacy is going in the wrong direction from the Israeli perspective. The legitimacy is shifting more towards giving rights and representation and statehood to the natives of the land. Now, just off script completely, I just want to mention something. A squatter, right? This is an analogy that's not 100%, but hear me out. A squatter, imagine a squatter is, someone who's basically occupied a home that's not theirs. A squatter will never sleep comfortably his whole life if he knows the homeowner's sort of skulking about, walking around, he's got supporters here, there, in the crevices. The squatter, for some reason, in this analogy, has the backing of the strongest powers of the age, but the squatter is still a squatter. There's no question about it. He can push really hard. His mates can push really hard. But at the end of the day, there's a deed to the home, and it's not in the hands of the squatter. It's in the hands of the homeowner who's currently out in the streets because you've taken his home. Or he's living in the basement and you own the rest of the house. You control the rest of the house. Now, the more countries recognize the right of the actual homeowner to his own home, it's going to stress out the squatter. It is what it is. It is what it is. Anyway, that's the news. I'll see you on the next one. And for the analysis, you can stick around. I'm going to drink some tea. I'm going to get into the analysis. There's going to be a couple minutes extra. When I say couple minutes, you've been here before, right? I unfortunately meander too much. I'll try to keep a lid on it, though. Oh, that tea's hot, but alhamdulillah still. Okay, anyway, that's the news. For those who don't have time for more, here's the analysis. Without the Western spin, obviously. Also, for those who want the related history of Israel and Palestine in brief, but without the Western spin, look up newsbaba.history on TikTok now. I've just started a new page. It's got it's got a grand total of 1 videos. But you have to start somewhere. Give that a follow if you want more long-form historical content to be played as a sort of passive thing in the background or to be played while you're driving to or from work. You care about the history, you want the history, but without the Western spin, but in the English language. There's lots of tick boxes and I hope I can check them all for you. Anyway, newsbaba.history on TikTok. It's basically my history account. I've opened it up. We'll see how it goes. The geopolitics obviously will stay here. Now, the people, you guys, deserve the truth about what happened in the past, and you deserve the truth about what's happening now. And that's why I've broken out a history account, just to keep things separate in case people don't like the long form. I'm gonna start making some more short form content as well for those who want to, in a couple of minutes, in 3 minutes, 4 minutes, really stretching it. They want the news, but they want it from me, but they don't want a 10-minute analysis piece. I'm working on it, guys. And thank you guys for all your well wishing. I know I was unwell yesterday, made no videos. I'm back. So I appreciate your messages, your prayers, your du'as, very much appreciated. And I'm feeling much better now, thank God, alhamdulillah. Now, back to the analysis of the UK recognizing Palestine today, as it's expected. First off, a clarification for something that confuses some people. A nation can recognize a state by itself. The nation can unilaterally recognize a state. Any country can say, I recognize Palestine. But for Palestine to actually be, or any nation that's recognized, to actually be able to operate as a nation state in the United Nations, diplomatically with all other countries, get access to investments and fundings through certain avenues, be accepted as a nation state on the world stage, basically. For Palestine to officially be a state, they need a UN Security Council unanimous vote. The Big Five, meaning the 5 winners of World War II, basically. America, France, Britain, China, Russia. These guys make up the UN Security Council, and it has to be a unanimous vote. Does this country get statehood? Everyone has to say yay. A single nay, a single veto, khalas, that country cannot be considered a country. So far, it's all but guaranteed that the US would veto Palestinian statehood, full membership, at this moment in time. So we're not talking about Palestine being fully recognized as a state just yet, but the UK individually recognizing it today, that's what we're talking about. Now, is the UK's move going to change the Gaza crisis, the engineered crisis by the Israeli state and the Israeli Defense Force in Gaza immediately? No. Heck, if Palestine was recognized at the UN Security Council today as a state, would that end the Gaza crisis like that? Even then, no. So what's with all the fanfare and the tea drinking and video making on this topic, Mahfouz? What the heck? Come back to us when you have a Palestinian state for us. Well, here is where geopolitics comes in. Israel, as the occupier of historic Palestine, continues to build settlements, roads, shift their citizens into the West Bank, and of course what is core Israel today, that too is all historic Palestine. And the Brits handed it over to the Zionists decades ago. I made a history video on it about it. You can go check it out at newsbaba.history. Now, for Israel, they have control of the land on the ground, right? This is called de facto control. De facto, by the facts, by the reality on the ground. But they need something. They want something more. They want de jure control, meaning by right. It is mine by right, right? They need international community acceptance that Palestine is not stolen land, is not occupied land. It's simply Israel or Israel, whatever accent you want to use, right? That's what they really want. Every nation that recognizes Palestine, you must, I highlight this to you now. Every nation that recognizes Palestine as a state takes Israel further and further away from that dream of theirs, of de jure recognition that this land is mine, Israel's, by right. It takes them away from that. Control over historic Palestine is mine by right. That's the reality, not just on the ground. They want that reality in people's heads. They want that reality on the international diplomatic stage. And actually, the Western powers recognizing Palestine moves the needle away from that. After all, the squatter in a home can never rest easy until the deed to the house that the homeowner has. Sorry, I burped there, excuse me. The deed to the house that the homeowner has, as long as it's intact, as long as it's not destroyed, as long as there are living people who think, oh yeah, we know that that's the homeowner. Yeah, there's someone else is living there, but we know that guy is the homeowner. As long as that's the problem, as long as that's the reality, it's a problem for the squatter. The squatter needs every erasure of traces that this home belonged to anyone other than me, right? Anything less than that, and the squatter will live in fear indefinitely that one day the homeowner, maybe bringing backup from the east or wherever, will come and reclaim his own house. maybe with buddies that are speaking Russian and Mandarin. I'm just saying, the analogy is okay anyway. Now, is that analogy 100%? No, but it helps me at least understand why recognition of Palestine triggers Israel so much. It's because it moves them away from de jure recognition. Now, a final point. Israel geopolitically has four nations that act as the four corners of a sort of temple of legitimacy that Israel has built for itself. And a temple's not a bad analogy. It's kind of like a religion. It's just this sort of belief that the land is mine. It's a cult, you could, or a religion, right? Okay, so these four pillars upon which this temple of Israeli legitimacy, legitimate claim to the land, the four pillars it rests on one of the components is that Palestine is not recognized as a country. That's always been the case. It's part of the reason Israel hopes it can one day achieve that de jure control, international acknowledgement that historic Palestine belongs to Israel. That's a component of Israeli legitimacy, the absence of Palestinian legitimacy. Now, these four pillars that I'm talking about are four countries. They are the UK, they are France, they are Germany, and they are the US. These four big boys are the primary supporters of Israeli legitimacy, of claims of Israeli ownership of historic Palestine. These four are the biggest, most impactful players. Now, two of those pillars are about to collapse and recognize Palestine, which is why this is such a body blow to the Israeli state, far from the international community going the right direction according to Israel, strengthening those four pillars, strengthening that temple of legitimacy that Israel has spent decades, literally decades building. They've been working so hard. It's the other way around. It's their temple of legitimacy is about to have two of their pillars knocked off. And I'm no construction expert, but a temple with only two pillars seems a bit lopsided, a bit precarious, a bit unstable. And then the other two pillars are having to carry more weight, more load. Germany and the US, and the citizenry in the German Federation, the citizenry in the United States, they're not too happy with Israel's setup at the moment either. They're not too happy with the lack of Palestinian recognition either. So the last two pillars are already showing cracks as well. That's my analytical assessment for you. And for the unbiased news and analysis without the Western spin, I'm Mahfouz, and I'll see you on the next one.